Okay, I see we're live now. So it's 6:01 and I'd like to call the board meeting number 991 to order. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish and St'át'imc Nations. With that, I have, there's a agenda recommendation.
That the agenda of this meeting be approved.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Melissa. With that, there is a couple of minute recommendations.
That the minutes, sorry, there's an echo. That the minutes of the board meeting held February 12th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you, Lisa. A second for that. Thank you, Melissa. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, and that's accepted. One more.
That the summary minutes of the in-camera board meeting held on February 12th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you, Lisa. Second for that. Thank you, Melissa. Any objections?
No.
Okay, and that's carried.
Are you here? Echo, Chair?
Try to
Nope.
again.
We are.
It's. I thought it was from there. Nope.
You guys have an echo there?
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Our things are off.
I think we're good.
Is it working now?
Think so.
Okay, it's working now.
Right now.
Okay, so that brings us to our chairperson's remarks. So I'm just going to report out a little bit of what we've been working on since we last had our public meeting. We had a scheduled liaison meeting that ended up being canceled, and then we had last week attended we had the board chairs meeting for BCSTA on Thursday, and it was quite useful information I found there. They did what they called infomercials. So each of the standing committees for BCSTA reported out on what they were doing. They were just little 5-minute segments, and then we had a presenter that came in and talked about conflict on your boards and such. And I found her information was quite useful and fitting in many ways. She talked about how to navigate and better ways to say things, and also the importance of in-person meetings, because she said there's way more value when you're looking at body language is a big key piece of communicating, and stuff. So we had some breakout sessions. So they mixed our tables up with trustees with long service. So I fit into that end of it, being a 5th term trustee. And then we had brand new trustees at the table. So they're like a year and a half in. We had geographic differences as well. So there was, some from, I was sitting next to a lady from Bella Coola, and and then there was like a real broad mix. So we brought a bunch of different perspectives to the table when you have, some remoteness factors that are involved there as well. And the Bella Coola they have a school on an island where it's accessible only by float plane or boat. There's no roads to it at all. So I always find that useful when you have these conversations with people from other districts and how they've navigated some situations where they simply can't find teachers in some of these areas, and they're often on I can't remember the name of now. When they get a letter that they're off, like they can teach. Like April was talking about it earlier today, or they can't find senior staff. So I count our blessings for where we are, what our abilities are here in our district. And then that was followed by a day with the following day, which was the partner group meetings. So our secretary treasurer and our superintendent were in attendance as well, but the first day we were all in different separate rooms. And then the next day we were all joined together. And yeah, I found it quite informative this time, and then a bit eye-opening as well as just how different things are in some districts and stuff. So yeah. Following that, I've been working, Chris and I were working, their superintendent and I have been working with the BC School Trustees Association, who are hosting the 2026 Canadian School Board Association Conference in Whistler. So we had a meeting today about a conversation about, about that and about what we're going to be, would like to know our protocols with our Indigenous communities in the land that we're on. And then we'll also be presenting, our district will be presenting at our AGM in next month in April, and on best practices. And this one is in respect to Bill 40 and things that are working for us and some of the challenges that we've identified. Sure, there might have been a few other things, but that's all I can think of right now. So thank you. Any trustee remarks? Melissa?
Yeah, thank you. I was able to go to the implementation day at Palmerton Secondary on February 14th. Unfortunately, I did have to leave early due to an accounting emergency at work, but it was really beautifully done. There was a lot of people there, a lot of people that I've never met before. So it was really nice to see some familiar faces and meet some new people. And I was attempting to stay as present as possible. So unfortunately, I didn't take any notes, which means that I don't remember the presenter's name. He was so wonderful. He had just become a doctor in his field and is from this area. So he was so honored to be presenting, and we were so honored to be with him, learning from him. And he broke down the Indian Act for us, and it's always a very heavy topic. It's always very emotionally filled, and I think that they did a really good job of bringing history in to what we're seeing in the present as well, which was really fantastic to be part of. And then they had a safe area where if things were too big and too heavy for you, then they were there to sage and to be there for you. So yeah, it was a really beautiful day, and I was really glad to be a part of it with the teachers and the EAs and all the staff there. So thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Lisa, I think your hand was up next.
Yep. Thank you, Rebecca. I just wanted to report out that I had a great experience at our partner group meeting in Whistler this past month. Lots of amazing comments from our partner groups, and carpooled with 3 staff members from various different parts within the organization. So not just trustees, but with some teaching staff, some janitorial staff, and some EA staff. So that was a really great carpool experience with them as well. And wanted to shout out that we just had our Squamish custodian appreciation this evening before the board meeting, and special thanks to our Squamish custodian team for all the work they do, and 2 long-term serving members within the organization. We had one 25-year pin awarded and one 20-year pin awarded. So thank you very much to those dedicated staff.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to you, Celeste, and April for being there. 3 of us got stuck on the opposite side of the accident earlier today, so we're able to Zoom in. So thank you guys for representing and having a dinner with the custodians. Cynthia, I think you may have been next. Not 100%. Your hands went up pretty quick.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to speak next. like Lisa said, I was at the partners group meeting. Many of us were there, and it was, again, one of the highlights of the year. I think it's a great opportunity to hear input from people from every area of our school district. So I was pleased to be able to be a part of that, and just want to reiterate what an important evening that is. I was also really fortunate to attend the implementation day in the South, and I was asked to be a witness to at one of the Indigenous ceremonies that took place, and that was a real honor, and I was really humbled by that. It made a pretty big impact. As I left, I felt that I had really learned some important information, and I also learned that as a witness, I'm supposed to share this important information. So what I'd like to do at this time is just to take a few moments to share a bit of what I learned, and it's kind of apropos today as it's snowing like crazy in Whistler. And one of the lessons that was talked about at the ceremony that we were lucky enough to be able to witness was that when the snow comes down, it's a new blanket on the earth, and it's creating it's hiding, I suppose you could say, all of what's happened in the past and giving you an opportunity for a fresh start. So that was something that I took away that I thought was quite meaningful. And today, when I look out at several inches of snow that have fallen today, I think that we have opportunities each and every day for fresh starts, and we can put away the things that maybe troubled us a little bit for some time and look to start anew where and when we can. So that was quite nice, and it was quite meaningful to me. The day went on to have several breakout sessions. There must have been, gosh, maybe 20 or 30 different people leading small groups through 20 or 30 different topics of Indigenous ways of knowing and being. And the one I attended was called Ancestral Skills. I didn't quite know what I was getting into or what that meant, but when I arrived, it was filled with people who were really excited to be there, as was I. And we learned all about traditional methods of hunting and tanning, and then turning those skins into clothing. And it was Delmar, who is well known in our district, who led our session. It was fantastic. So I think it was a really great day. Everyone I spoke to who went to the different breakout sessions all said that they really appreciated the presenters and the content that was provided to them, and that they felt that they really had learned something new that day. So a real thank you to all of the people who worked really hard to put that day together. It was tremendous, really, really fantastic. The last thing, just to touch on with, as Rebecca said, the Canadian School Board Association is plowing ahead on getting the conference up and running for 2026. So that's good news. And I think that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Cynthia. And just a note for other trustees, if something arises, Cynthia was letting me know yesterday, or was that earlier today, or one of the days, that that they would love to have any kind of performances. Or maybe actually, I think that was Chris and I with Gordon today.
Yes.
Okay. All these meetings get me mixed up sometimes, but
Okay,
any type
I
of
think we talked about it as well before. So it's
okay,
all
that's probably what then. So any type of performance, ceremony, a drumming circle, anything like that. So if you have any leads to any groups that would perform or thing, the challenging part is it is up after schools are closed. So it is generally around July 2nd to the 5th. So yeah, but keep it in mind, something comes up. So thanks, Cynthia. Celeste?
Yeah, I just wanted to report out on our last DPAC meeting that Chris and I attended. Oh, these minutes say from December. That must be an error because it was last month. So the first thing that I wanted to say is that there's still no DPAC rep for Blackwater Creek Elementary or Statmas School. So there's a really great group of parents participating in DPAC this year. And I would just encourage anybody who's thinking about getting involved in their PAC and perhaps serving as a DPAC rep to go ahead and try that work out. Chris and myself and sometimes Paul attend the meetings, and it's a really great interface between PAC and the district. So at the last month, I hope I'm on the right agenda. I think I am. I always do a report out. So I attend those meetings and report out at our meetings. So we talked about what the school district is doing for cybersecurity, the policy reviews, other information. Chris always gives a report. He reported out on implementation today and what's happening with the refresh for our strategic plan. The board chair or the DPAC chair, pardon me, talked about the work that DPAC is doing now, including the people that they were having attend the partner group meeting as representatives for DPAC, education planners that they're looking at, and presentations that they're planning to bring. They're looking to have do some film screening with talks afterwards on anxiety for kids in the preteen and teenage years, and as well as a showing of screenagers. So stay tuned for that. They will be distributing more information. We talked more about the district's accessibility committee. There's a lot of interest on DPAC in participating on that committee, and good work being done by Chris on making sure that advocates are included and voices are heard from all areas. They talked about self-care for parents, and then other matters such as interdistrict busing and feeding futures. So again, very well organized group. Really happy to be the trustee that gets to attend these meetings again this year. And yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I don't think so. I have a quick one. Do you know if Blackwater has a PAC?
I don't know. Chris might.
I'm sorry, I don't know offhand if they do or not.
Yeah. I know there was some.
It's something that and of course it's something that the board supports. But they are under the BCC PAC constitution, and while we encourage, I know we can't compel. But I really appreciate Celeste's time, because if folks are listening, we really do value parent input. So thank you for
We've had the Blackwater
we have
Creek PAC come and present to us in the past. I just don't know how active that PAC might be at this time, but you know, anyone feeling moved to do that work, it's so important. And it is a bridge. And I think sometimes in the beginning, people think, oh, what's the point of doing this? But it's about advocacy, right? And you have the opportunity to interface with the district in a formal way. That's really important.
And meetings can be on Zoom, so we don't have to worry.
Yeah, you don't have to
drive out.
Exactly. That's right.
Well, as I have a grandchild at that school, I will try to encourage his mother.
Perfect.
So thank you so much. Any other trustee remarks? Okay, not seeing any, then superintendent's remarks.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will not hesitate to also thank everyone for their participation during Implementation Day on February 14th. And specifically, I just want to express my gratitude to the Squamish Nation and the St'át'imc Nations in the North for their leadership in providing incredible learning about their specific culture, language, and history. Thank you to the trustees who reported out on what they observed and took part in at each of the days. I was in the South, also called to witness. But before I do, I also just want to publicly again thank Joy McCullough from Squamish Nation, who was sort of the lead. I worked for Joy that day following ceremony. And to Swotwo, who is a former student of ours that our assistant superintendent was actually the principal of at Brackendale Elementary, who is now an incredible cultural leader and an MC, Swotwo, who did a fantastic job with a incredible longhouse voice. So I raised my hands to Swotwo and to Joy. And then in the north, Helena Edmonds was MC for Liwat, and I know we don't raise our hands in Liwat, so I'll just express my huge thank you to her. And to, I don't recall the name of the group, but we also brought in Indigenous, thank you, Indigenous governance. There we go. Experts from Indigenous governance to provide the information on the Indian Act and history and specific history to in the Statlium land on which we find ourselves in the north. So it was an incredible day. I too learned a lot. It was an incredible experience being a learner, and just want to express the honor to be invited to witness ceremony, and to the patience of the leadership in Squamish Nation for taking the time to explain each step of the ceremony to the folks in the room. And I also want to just share my gratitude to all the participants who were fully engaged, who showed such respect and engagement in the process. And again, as Cynthia said, the opportunity, I didn't take part in any one workshop. I had the pleasure, because I wanted to witness, of visiting all the workshops and or most of them. And I can share just again my gratitude for the presenters, for the knowledge keepers, and the elders that provided their time and shared their culture, their language, their learning with all of us in the South. It was a wonderful, wonderful day. Folks have spoken about partner group meetings, so I'll just throw in my thank you on behalf of staff for everybody who took part and in representing their group so well and providing us really valuable input. And again, we'll be sharing out more information on what we learned, I believe, at the next board meeting is the plan. Lots of meetings. We spoke about the partner liaison meeting that I attended along with the Secretary Treasurer and the board chair. What I appreciated about that was the time that the ministry took to really help us to focus on the importance of student safety in our classrooms, but also outside the classroom. And if I may just share what we have seen, and this is for parents listening, again, if you have opportunities to take part in learning about supporting your child in social media, we know the importance of that. We know the dangers and too much exposure. And specifically, they did share some uptick in more cyber-related crimes perpetrated against kids. So a lot of this information is in camera. However, in stats, we weren't able to share out with detail. But again, I think that messaging was very clear, and I would really encourage our parents and anybody else listening, when they get an opportunity, to please check out our link to Erase. That's the ministry website that shares lots of information about how to keep your child safe in any number of arenas, and specifically in the virtual world, and also the Report It tool for children who can anonymously report incidences of bullying and other safety-related matters. So I just want to put a plug in for that, because of course, student safety is a priority of our district. I will also acknowledge that Ramadan began on February 28th, ending on Sunday, March 29th. And as we try to do our best to share each month in our diversity calendar, opportunities for folks to learn about different cultures, different religious observances, important dates in history that we have under our news and events. And just a little bit about Ramadan, as I hope most people know, it's a sacred month of fasting, reflection, and community. And during this time, many Muslim students and staff in the Sea to Sky School District have been and will continue to observe fasting from dawn to sunset with a beautiful meal at the end of each day. And I just want to remind all of us to keep that in mind when we're having our own celebrations and opportunities to eat, that we may have our neighbors, our friends, students in our classroom, staffs in our building that are observing Ramadan. And what I say to all those people is it Ramadan Mubarak, or Mubarak Ramadan, for a wonderful, wishing you a wonderful Ramadan. And of course, and globally, I will also observe that on March was it the 8th? Oh my goodness, I just lost my number. I'm going to get in trouble later. But we also, of course, observed International Women's Day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, on March
8th.
March 8th. Oh my God, I don't want to get that wrong.
Chris, with your all-woman board.
It's always March 8th.
Given, I know, and given
always
the wonderful representation of those who identify as women on our board, I will also point out that I believe we may be one of the few districts where in leadership positions, from VPs to principals, the majority of our administrative staff in schools are women. And proud to say we currently have a secretary treasurer, director of finance. In fact, most of the finance department and 2 directors of instruction are women, and and many other important people in the organization. And I'm just very proud that I think we're doing our best to ensure equity, if not more. And welcome everyone to the table. And we do our best to do that. Last thing I was going to say as I scroll through. Actually, I think. Oh, I wanted to mention at the All Soups meeting that I attended. One of the big takeaways from that, and I think it's also come out at the partner group meeting, but I just want to reiterate the ministry that we're looking forward to learning more about the ministry's support of the government mandate letter for education. And so I'll remind everyone that we'll be looking for more direction, hopefully more funding and supports in the areas of the expansion of education assistance and counseling resources, support for increasing Indigenous graduation rates, improving access to accessible, affordable childcare, including before and after school care, and supporting of student safety and the continued support for SOGI, and literacy and numeracy early intervention. Thank you.
You've been a busy beaver there. Good job.
It seems to be that time of month, these last couple of months.
Yeah, right. The rest of the year, I suspect it's ramping up. So thank you, Chris. Now for the Secretary Treasurer's remarks.
For us, we just received the grant tables today from the Ministry of Education. So the next few days, I'm sure we'll be looking to see what that means for us. And then I just wanted to mention that if there's any questions of clarification from the public, they can be sent to board@st48.bc.ca. And we will do our best to answer those at the end of the board meeting today.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so that does our announcements, completes our announcements. We move on to, we don't have any student or staff presentations. We do not have any receiving delegations. Are there any trustee items? Okay, not seeing any. That brings us to our board board committees. So our committee of the whole met earlier, and it is recorded, so it will be available on the website for if you missed it and you're interested in hearing the conversations that occurred. Mostly we were talking about our upcoming calendar for most of the rest of this school year. And then we talked about just some activities that are occurring at the provincial level with the BC School Trustees Association. So and I mentioned earlier that we'll be doing a presentation at the upcoming AGM. So we talked a bit about that, and Melissa reported out, Trustee Ronan reported out on the provincial council, as she's a member of that, and also with April presented Trustee Lowe on the professional learning committee. So everything is there if you'd like to hear more of the reports. And with that, there is a recommendation. Anyone's prepared to do that?
Everyone's so quick. That the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on February 12th, 2025 be accepted.
Thank you, Lisa. I was starting to wonder, I'm like, hello? Anybody hear me? Second for that? Thanks, Melissa. Any objections? Okay, hearing none, then we can move on to the policy committee. So policy met earlier today as well, and it too is recorded and will be available on the website if you wish to hear the discussion. We discussed two policies. Well, we looked at our policy review schedule for starters. And then you'll be hearing about policy 804, animals on school property, later on today, and the policy 402, evaluation of superintendent of schools, as well. With that, there's a recommendation.
That the minutes of the policy committee meeting held on February 12th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. A second for that? Thanks, Melissa. Any objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, that's carried. Finance committee did not meet today. We've reported out on what occurred last month, but there is a recommendation there.
That the minutes of the finance committee meeting held on February 12th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Cynthia. Any objections? Okay, seeing none, then that is carried. Public relations, community engagement, and communications committee. I don't think you.
We last reported. No.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add something though? And apologies for not checking in with you earlier.
Yeah.
But if the board recalls, there was a motion to move away from X as a social media channel. And then staff was given time to work with principals to ensure they had time to check in with their packs. We've almost got 15 of 15, but not quite. But I will report that it is consensus so far that every single pack is in support of the motion and isn't concerned about that as a communication channel and will adjust as necessary. So we hope to have everybody spoken for with their input provided by the April meeting, and then we'll move during that meeting to do the actual poll from our websites. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so that moves us to our general section. We do not have any business arising. So our information items, let's see, an enrollment update. And Danielle, that is you.
Thanks very much. I have, I'm just going to pull up a document here and walk you through it. Just one second. Oops. Okay. So This might look familiar to many of you. I just want to mention, we submitted our enrollment projections to the Ministry of Education and Childcare in February. And so this is our enrollment for next September 2025. And as you can see, it's broken down by school and community, Pemberton, Worcester, Squamish, and we are still using the demographer named Berriger, who specializes in school enrollment projections. And they look at births and trends in each community and try to predict the enrollment for each school. So there's this section here. The first column is 1701. This column here in white, and that the one that's under funded headcount projections. That was our actual fall headcount for 24-25 in September. So that's the number of student number that we had in the fall. And then the next section, which is gray here, the Berriger section, that's the section that that's Berriger's projections there. And then the next section is the schools projections in blue. And that is filled out by the principals. They put together their projections and send it to us. And then you'll see this green section here. And that is the admin council team adjusts the numbers to be a little bit more conservative. And we do that by looking at actual registrations at schools, as well as taking into account Berriger and what the principals have put together. So quite often they're very conservative. So this is the head count. And the ministry, these projections were submitted to the ministry a little bit early this year. They went February 7th. And the ministry uses this to provide our first quarter grant funding for the 25-26 school year. So that covers July, August, and September, the funding for that. And I just want to point out that the 1701 snapshot date is September 30th, 2025. And so this is the headcount projections. And then we also have this other section here that's funded FTE projections. And FTE means full-time equivalent. And so you'll see that that's usually higher than the headcount because students often take more courses than they'll take more than their caseload or full course load, sorry. So the number of full-time equivalent students enrolled will be submitted to the ministry in the fall. And then grants are adjusted to what they actually come in at. So this column here, this white one again, is what was in the 1701 in the fall. And this green one here is what we submitted to the ministry for projections for next year. So you can see there was a decrease. There's an projected increase of 155 FTE, 0.1875. And what that means for us is to put that into context, we don't know I haven't pulled up the per student funding for next year yet, but at our current funding is $8,915 per student. So what that would mean for us for next year would be a decrease in funding of $1,384,000. If it actually turned out we ended up being short that many students.
But I think you need to just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's why we always project cautiously, just before we panic.
No, I did say we were conservative.
Missed it. Okay.
Sorry,
right.
I said it a few times.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we tend to be conservative. Yeah. So if you look, I think we said we were going to be down like over 200 students last year. We ended up being up a little bit. So just to put that into context for context for next year. But this is just, you know, like I said, a conservative amount, because a lot of times students haven't registered yet for kindergarten, and so we're just being very conservative just to make sure that we're not overstaffing the beginning of the year in case the students don't end up showing up. So
Right.
Rebecca, may I?
Yep, go ahead. And if anyone wants to jump in, you can have to let me know because I can't see anyone now when we're doing a screen share.
At some point, we're expecting to see a decline, whether it's flat for a little while, but this is coming. I mean, this is not a shock to anybody when it happens eventually. It might be flat for a little while, or this could be the start of the decline in enrollment that we're expecting to see in the school district. Right?
yeah, I can't really recall. I don't know if you recall, Paul, for the Bear reports. I think most of the schools end up. I think some of the schools are going to be increasing a little bit over the next couple of years, and then they start to level out. But it's really hard to say.
But as a total, based on everything that we've heard over the last little while, we should be expecting a overall decline.
So not necessarily an overall decline in enrollment, but what we will see is an overall use the word failure of the level of enrollment and current funding to keep pace with cost.
Okay.
So that's the nuance is even if we're flat and we're not seeing decline because costs continue to increase.
Yeah.
Unless we see the requisite funding to account for that, which we all know publicly that we're not seeing. That's when we will start to feel more and more pressure on the budget and to balance the budget. So it's not because of necessarily declining enrollment. It's more that funding for enrollment and other sources of funding aren't keeping up with cost.
And what we're doing to address that is meeting with our MLA and doing advocacy at the
Yes.
provincial level.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And if I may, Rebecca, to follow up on that, I think for the public to realize that Howe Sound Secondary School is going up in enrollment, and we're seeing increases in that school in particular that we need to be cautious of.
Yeah, and if I may, to your point, absolutely, there are sites, and we'll be speaking about Howe Sound a little bit later in the meeting. That there are pockets where we have increase, but overall, it's either it looks like it's more of a leveling or very negligible increase while costs continue to rise. And even at Howe Sound, we'll speak to it later, but it's a bubble, and then it's going to level out and be less later.
Yeah, and to Chris's point, there's a lot of pressure across the whole province. For like, there's the inflation is, especially we don't know what's happening with tariffs, but I do have some information that there's some costs will definitely be going up. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like for us, and there's increased sick leave costs that we're feeling across the whole province, as well as our benefits costs have increased significantly for like all the school districts.
Every organization.
All kinds of things. Inflation, construction costs are going up, and our buildings are aging without having there's not very much increase. Even in our annual facilities grant, they told us this year it's going to be exactly the same as last year. But you know, the cost of everything is still going up. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here.
Okay. Were there any further questions for the enrollment update? Okay, well, thank you, Danielle. And I do know that you guys are generally quite conservative when you forecast. Okay, so looks like there are a couple of attachments there for your review and the media report and field trips. There's no correspondence at this time. so that brings us to items for discussion. So as we mentioned earlier, we did have a conversation at our policy meeting, and then we had a further one that came out of camera, and there is now a recommendation there. So policy 804, animals on school property. Chris, did you want to say anything about this?
I do.
Briefly,
I'd like to really thank the board for the very thoughtful and engaging conversation. I want to share with the public that again, a lot of time and effort was work was done by the board during policy committee to potentially make this a workable policy. And I think that's all I want to say. Oh, and I'll thank Celeste for her support in doing the final edits in between dinner and today. Thank you, Celeste.
Well, thank you. And I would just, I think I'd like to add that we've been discussing this for quite some time, and it's a change that we needed to make to protect the district and to protect students and staff as well. And you know, it was so challenging to work through this, and it became a lot more than I thought it was going to be. But super appreciate how the work that's gone into this, and stuff. So with that, there is a motion.
Where do we get that license? Oh, yeah, license registration.
Right at the top. I know, sorry.
Anyone prepared to make the recommendation?
Oh, sure. The Board of Education approved policy 804, animals on school property, with changes as discussed.
Thank you. Second for that? Anyone? Oh, thank you, April.
Yep.
Sorry, I have to go up and down to see everybody on the screen. So thank you, April. Any objections?
No, I just have a discussion
Okay.
point, if I may. I
Yeah.
just wanted to thank Chris again for his responsiveness to the feedback that we received from a parent who came to present to the board at the last board meeting. And just to say that I think this demonstrates that the system is working. You know, we can communicate with people and we can respond appropriately when it is fitting. And so just thank you for the work and for the extra effort that was put into finding creative solutions to problems that presented themselves.
Thank
Very well said, Celeste. Thank you. So any objections? Hey, hearing none, then that's passed. Yay. Good job, everyone. So with that, we have a policy motion. So this came forward from today's earlier work. So a lot of the conversation it was already discussed, and it would be recorded. And then just to add that there were just a couple of small changes that were made to the current policy. Danielle, do you want to add anything?
No, I think it was very minimal changes required. So no, I think it's good.
Okay, anyone prepared to make that motion?
Sure.
Recommendation.
That the Board of Education approved policy 402, evaluation of superintendent of schools, with changes as discussed.
Thank you. Second for that? Thank you, April. Any objections? Hearing none, then that is carried. Okay, so we had,
Could we really quickly?
yeah.
I just noticed for correspondence, there was a letter that had come in, and I think it might have just been missed. It was from a parent on climate education in schools. And so I don't know
Who did
if
it go to?
maybe it didn't come to staff, but maybe we don't have time to address it today.
You sent
But I
it to
think
me?
we should make sure that gets included on the agendas and maybe redacting anything personal, but just so the record of that sort of correspondence being sent in is
Sure, I don't have
part
it.
of the
so
record.
if you
Yeah,
could
that's
forward it to
okay.
me, that'd be
Yep,
great.
no worries.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, I didn't.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. We can forward that. We'll make sure that it gets included at our next meeting. So with that, we don't have any action items. Items to be brought out of camera. Is there a motion that goes there, or how does that work? But anyway, so Whistler Secondary Weight Room, Danielle, your name is there, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to give an update on that. You can as well. So we've been in discussions with Whistler Secondary School where they're going to be renovating a classroom and changing it into a weight room, which will be used by students and staff. It's not going to be used for the community, but specifically for the school. And that is a renovation that's going to be occurring over the summer. And so everybody's really excited about it.
Mhm.
So it'll be great. for the
Yeah,
community.
it's been a relatively long-standing ask because we thank Meadow Park facilities for hosting our students. That was sort of an arrangement that was made. My understanding is when the school was built when Meadow Park was built, that students would have access to the gym there for some additional programming during the school day, and recognizing that there was no facility at Worcester Secondary School. There's been the opportunity now to convert a classroom into a excellent space for weight training, for health and conditioning, for learning more about fitness. So it'll become an additional classroom space and gym. So let's make that clear that it will be used for learning as well as for working out. And I can report that staff, students, the community is thrilled with this development. And I'll also just publicly thank the Whistler Secondary PAC, who I know are eager to help support with the wish list from staff and the school around what types of equipment they would like in the room. So I just want to thank the WSS PAC in advance for their assistance in helping to outfit the gym. It's a very exciting project. And a big thank you to Ian Curry, our Director of Facilities, who has worked very hard on this project, on looking at the best placement and opportunity for where best to place this facility. And of course, to the administration staff at WSS, because we wanted to ensure that current and future space considerations for classroom use was not going to be negatively impacted. And so they've come up with some very creative and innovative solutions that will actually make the learning space where the teacher currently is even better in their new home.
I'm not sure if you said it, but when did this first come to our attention? Was it about
My
a year
goodness,
ago?
it's been a while. I think it's been about a year.
I think it's been longer than
Maybe longer than
I
a
think
year.
it may be longer even. Yeah.
Long-term project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to recognize and for the interest of the public, these are items that we and staff are working through, and it can take years before it even comes forward to this point. So super grateful and acknowledge the work that staff put into the planning and the options that they brought forward for us. Thank you. Let's see any hands up. So that brings us to Howe Sound Secondary Library renovation. Danielle, are you taking that one as well? Are you starting it?
Was that?
Maybe I'll start that one.
Sure.
As we shared a little bit earlier, that we are in recognition of some space stresses for space at House on Secondary School. We recognized that we needed some additional classroom space because we want to ensure that providing the best possible learning environments for our students. We went through a number of scenarios, including what we thought was an easy move of a portable to the site, or one or two portables that we thought would meet our needs. However, we were made aware of new bylaws and requirements from the municipality of Squamish in terms of flood mitigation, and the costs to meet those needs were untenable for us, and I will just say we're probably at least 3 times the cost that we were anticipating. So again, with great thanks to Ian Curry, who has all the blueprints of our schools and understands the structural engineering aspects of schools, we decided the best course of action would be to renovate the House Sound library and be able to put in some temporary walls to provide us with 2 additional classrooms, while at the same time maintaining more than 50% of the space. And additionally, in looking at configuration, we feel we're going to be able to reconfigure some old style planning in the past for storage, for office space, etc., that can be used much more efficiently for library use and to meet the needs of the librarian. So we're excited moving forward. We did have preliminary conversations with the teacher librarian, so I do want to publicly thank Jackie Sutherland for her input. And she will be working with Ian and the principal of the school and administration at House on Secondary to provide input into the reconfiguration and the wish list. And we'll hope to do as much as we can within the budget that we have. And one of the things I will announce, hope I don't get in trouble for doing this, but one of the things we think we're going to be able to do is whole new flooring for the entire library, where we have very old carpet and some other not so nice surfaces. So just that conversion alone is going to make that a much more welcoming, bright, clean, and hygienic place. And we'll be again working with Jackie and administration to ensure we can, provide a better learning commons experience for kids, while at the same time providing some pretty skookum, can use that word, classrooms that will have beautiful views of outside, obviously the access to the library and the NPR. And I think this is the best we can do moving forward. And I do want to assure the public that your board has not stopped in their advocacy with the Ministry of Education and the BC government for ensuring that the top priority and ask of the ministry is funding for the seismic upgrade combined with the expansion of House Sound Secondary School. So we see this as a temporary measure, but I also want to be transparent that temporary, we know in government and in schools can sometimes be a little bit longer than we would hope for. So we're going to do our best again to ensure we're producing excellent learning spaces, both for classrooms and for the learning commons. But we will not be stopping our advocacy for the seismic and upgrade to the site and expansion of House Sound Secondary School. It remains the #1 priority in the district for capital projects. Thank you.
Thanks. Chris.
Oh, and I should mention the plan is to have this done again by the time kids return in September for minimal impact on students and staff. Thank you.
It's fantastic. They got their job, the work cut out for them, don't they? Any questions or comments? I think I'll just add in that I love the thought and the creativity that went behind what would be work the best for us in the interim. So thank you
Sorry,
for that.
I can't not also thank John Hamill, the fantastic Indigenous support workers at House Sun Secondary. Part of the renovation will be a reclaiming of a little triangle of space that isn't currently used in the ISW room. Good news is we're able to we'll be able to reclaim all of the unused shelving and counter space and reconfigure it to make the ISW room that much more inviting, as well as being able to put in a sink, which has been a long-standing request. And because of the work we have to do, we're going to be able to also tap into the water supply and improve the kitchen for kids and for staff, because we all know the importance of breaking bread together, especially in Indigenous and specifically Squamish culture. So we feel this is a win-win-win all the way around.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Now I promise.
I just had a quick
Yep.
comment, Rebecca, if I can, before you
Yep.
close it out. I just wanted to highlight the thought that went into the decision making around this, and to say that this was discussed in camera prior to it being made public today. The decision to utilize the library for classroom space is not a decision that was made lightly by either, staff or the board's input that was provided. But given the environment of limited resources that we're working in, and the difficult decisions that had to be made around how to accommodate the large number of students, this bubble of kids that are coming into Howe Sound, and the building really is bursting at the seams. And so I think you'd said to us in a closed meeting, Chris, but it may not have been apparent today, the walls that will be put up are temporary.
Yes.
Can be taken down and reused to reconfigure other places once this bubble of students, if the numbers in the school go down again in the future, that space will go back to being completely a library space, but it will be preserved for the time being. So we value our library. We are very, very thankful for our librarian, and that space will continue to be utilized by students as a library. But this was the result of a difficult decision that had to be made in light of the large number of students that we have entering the school next year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we have any bylaws. Do we have any questions of clarification from the public?
We'll check. We don't have anybody here in person.
Okay,
No questions.
okay, so wow, 7:04. Look at us. From that, we have completed the business of this agenda, and we are now adjourned.